Welcome everybody to our BNI Talks webinar. My name is Steve Januzzo, your host, and today I've got my friend Joe Poirier of the BNI Massachusetts team, and he has a great business I'll be talking about in just a little bit. But today we're talking about the Power of One report and how it grows your business and your network. You know, a lot of people have lots of questions about this report, and Joe is here to answer all of them. So we're going to do the presentation and then we'll go into Q&A when we're done. So Joe, why don't you take it away?
Awesome. Thank you, Steve, and to everybody else. I'm a newbie at this, so if I stutter, if I mess something up, please forgive me. I love doing this, and I have to tell you, the Power of One is something I'm very passionate about. It's not only changed my business, but my personal life, my chapter, my everything. I'm very passionate about it. Some would say obsessive, and that's okay. I learned from a guy named Tim Roberts, who we'll mention in a few minutes. See already, Steve, my forward button. Where is that going? Let's go to the next slide. There we go. So, so that's me. My company is 8 Waves Creative. I'll give you another second to scan that. Just a quick background on me so you know where my motivation and my experience comes from. In a nutshell, you see in the picture there, my daughter, Amanda. In the background there is the love of my life, Vicky. We met at BNI. So you think I'm passionate about BNI, yet another reason. She was a visitor, so bring visitors. My partner, Michelle, and I have run 8 Waves Creative for the last 14 years. We're Boston's North Shore area, web development, social media, pay-per-click, and then we drive and analyze traffic and return on investment. In BNI, I was originally, Steve, I don't know if you know this, I was a professional substitute. I started subbing everywhere. I started visiting everywhere around. My partner, Michelle, meanwhile, joined BNI. I was getting nothing from it as a professional sub and visitor. I quickly realized our best clients, the ones that trusted us, the ones that paid us the most, wink, wink, that's awesome. The ones that didn't beat us up on price and have a long sales process came from Michelle and her membership. So I said, all right, I'm getting involved. And we launched a chapter. I then went on to become a BNI director and area director, working with chapter success coaches. Some of you call them directors, I think still, I don't know, just a different title. I loved what I was most passionate about and loved the most was working for the Massachusetts training team, working with small groups and one-on-one to train people overall how to run their chapter and how to get the most out of BNI. Here's a big one. We've done over $1 million in revenue right through BNI, and we track it. We know what it is, and that's what today's about. So, Steve, I think we have a poll first, and I would love you to launch that poll.
Yep. Hang on one second. I will get that launched.
I told Steve I was really curious in your chapters. How often is the BNI Power of One report mentioned? Do you guys talk about it every week? Once a month, twice a month, just once in a while, or never? And trust me, I know chapters that never mention it. They kind of think it's a BNI corporate-y thing, and they just never mention it. What's our number one answer so far, Steve?
Well, I don't want to give anything away, but in the lead right now is every meeting, but not by a lot.
All right.
Once a month is creeping up on it. We'll see how this goes. I'm curious to see once we close out the poll how this winds up. But I'm curious. You can put into the chat. Has anyone never heard of Power of One or traffic lights? Just really curious.
Great question, Steve.
Yeah, we've got a few people. There you go.
Awesome, okay. Amanda. That's my daughter's name, Amanda. So never. So. I'm going to explain that to you, Amanda. I'll keep it on the short end for what is the Power of One, and I'm going to show you where to find it and what to do with it. I think I've heard of it once, says Andrea. Okay, so here's
I'm going to end the poll and share the results here.
Awesome.
There you go.
Every meeting, that is awesome. So you that answered every meeting, you probably have a good Power of One culture, or at least the foundation of one. So great job. That is awesome. And a whole bunch of you less than that. So that's good information for me. So I really thank you a lot for that information. So first, why? So we cannot improve what we don't track. My home chapter hears me say that every single week. We cannot improve what we don't track. I mean, if you were spending $1,000 on an advertisement, would you continue to run it over and over if you didn't know what the return was? Probably not, right? So number one is tracking. The number one reason is to track our marketing spend, and then accountability. First for yourself. I love to look in my app, and I look at it all the time to see what I've been doing and then the revenue that it's created. It also, for solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, small business owners, doesn't marketing always fall down the totem pole? Right, Steve? You always put it last. You've got deliverables, you got a contract you got to write, you're building a house. The marketing tends to fall away. So to keep on track as a business, I love the accountability of the power of one. And it reminds me that I got to keep on marketing and moving forward. And lastly, a great culture for your chapter. All right. So first, where the BNI Power of One is, it's in BNI Business Builder. Really simple to find. If you just search for the month you want, August 2022, Power of One, Massachusetts, and it'll come up first in your results there and under resources. I download it every month. It comes out about the 5th of the month, and I just put it on my desktop so I have it accessible when I need it. A quick scoring recap for those that don't know what the Power of One is. And I got to tell you, I thought I knew what it was for a long time. So relearning this and looking at this scoring over and over always helps me. So if you do one CEU per week, you get 20 points. One one-to-one per week, one visitor a month, one referral a week, and one meeting per week. You'll get 20 points for each, and you'll be at 100. These are aggregated over 6 months. So this is a history report, not a future report, but a history report on what's happened on average and your activity weekly over the last 6 months. Does that make sense, Steve?
Yes, correct. This all looks good. Someone said it's a visitor a month, not per week, but we are looking at this on a weekly basis, right?
Yeah, exactly. So 0.25 visitors per week would be your goal, or right. one per month. Yep. Correct. So 0.23, correct. Real easy to get to the yellow. One CEU, one one-to-one, and one meeting a week, and you're already in the yellow. If you're not in the yellow, I just think everybody should be there. That's like a starting point. There's a monthly tab on this Power of One that you can look at the last 6 months. So you'll see this. I didn't want to put everybody's name here. So everybody's Tom Smith, but you'll see this Tom Smith is 100 for the last 6 months and then dropped to a 95. So you can kind of see where you're trending and where all of your chapter members are trending. And then your current month broken down line by line. How many CEUs per week have you averaged over the last 6 months? One-to-ones, visitors per week, referrals, and attendance, right? So this is the monthly report, and you can find your chapter's monthly report and everybody's information right in that Power of One, all right? So I got to move on, Steve. I got to talk about the Anthony McWhinney story, and I could talk about this for an hour, but I won't tell you. I won't talk for an hour, I promise. So what I want you to know today, there's 2 things and 2 value points I'd love you to take away. How can you use the Power of One personally? And then how can your chapter benefit from it as a chapter for growth? Okay. So I met Anthony McWhinney, and I started noticing on the Power of One, this kid, he's on the other side of the state, was at 100 every month. Like every month he was there. And I ran into him once and just started asking him, how are you at 100 every month? And his attitude, and Steve, I think you know Anthony, he's a little crazy.
I know him well, and I agree about the insanity.
He says, why wouldn't you be at 100? Like that's a starting point. It should be 100. So God love him. I started talking to him about it all the time. And then he challenged me. And he said, Joe, why don't you get to 100? So I got to 100. And then he said, okay, the month that one of us falls below 100, we owe the other one dinner. And I'm sorry to say, after 18 months of being at 100, he and I both, this month he got me. So we went out to dinner. I had to pay. right? So what did I do there? I just found an accountability partner that was doing huge things, not only at BNI, but his business and life. And I said, hey, let's start talking to each other all the time. And let me get little tidbits. The guy is invited, Steve, like, I think he's got like 300 visitors and like, I think 30 or 40 sponsored new members in BNI.
He is a machine for inviting.
He's a machine for inviting. And he credits the power of one. So listen, I got contagious with this power of one and became obsessed like Anthony, but I saw what it was doing for his business. And we still, by the way, I've used his services. He's a mover, and he's used my services. We've been working together now for, I don't know, a year and a half. And he reached out to me when I started hitting that 100 mark. And he said, hey, I see you're at 100. Maybe we should do some work together. So I got a referral out of the deal. So not bad. But it starts with one person. It's contagious. It'll be contagious in your chapter. In Anthony's chapter, they ended up with 3 at 100 last month. Every member but 2 were in green or yellow, right? With that in mind, when a new member comes in, what do you think they're going to do? Steve, have you ever worked with a chapter where everybody's in the gray and the red?
Yes, I have. It's there are, obviously certain extenuating circumstances sometimes when you see that. But I think sometimes when they see it initially, they give up on it. They're like, oh, we're not going to do this because it doesn't reflect well on them, and they don't take advantage of what it can be.
Yeah. And some people also, either they don't understand a report or they don't know how to change it either. Like some people are doing CEUs in BNI Business Builder, and that does not automatically credit them. And the power of one, you got to put in your slips for your CEUs. So sometimes just a misunderstanding. I encourage you to reach out to a leader, your support director, and learn more about it if you're not quite getting it or have questions. So yesterday, by the way, Anthony's chapter, 38 registered visitors, 20 visitors attended. They have 8 applications in today. I had to update this slide this morning. They have a culture of power of one, and it's starting to be contagious with other members in the chapter and people in Anthony's network. So let's talk about your chapter's culture. Answer a question for me in chat. What is the foundation of your chapter's culture? What I mean by that is, what do you guys base all your decisions on? And if we look at a definition of culture, it defines the proper way to behave and act in an organization, right? It's established by leaders, and then it's communicated and reinforced through various methods. And it shapes your members' perceptions, behaviors, and understanding. So I love that, Lisa. Relationships, givers gain. Mary, yeah, great. Core values is a great foundation of a culture, right? The one we're talking about today is a power of one culture. I first heard that term from Tim Roberts. I'm going to give you some links to some Tim Roberts stuff too that are great follows up to this. We strive for power of one success. Awesome. Great answers. Givers gain. Listen, givers gain, I credit with not only changing my business life, but my personal life. I've been awfully selfish many years, Steve, but learning to give first, and that culture is a great culture. So I started working with this chapter in Newburyport. I told you about this, Steve. Hold on a minute. There we are. So here's what their power of one looked like. And they really weren't paying attention to it. Over 6 months, they were like 30, 31 members. So they were doing okay. But the leadership team reached out to me and they were like, hey, we got a handful of members that aren't doing anything. And I said, okay, well, what do you want to do? Well, I don't know. Shouldn't we get rid of them? And I said, based on what? And he said, well, they're not giving any referrals. They're not doing any CEUs. And I said, what about these other 20 people? Oh, well, so-and-so here does a lot for the chapter. They're always there early. They send a lot of referrals. Well, why are they in the gray? And how do you know they send a lot of referrals? Right? So they said, okay, like we get it. We need to be more accountable to each other. I love accountability. I always look at my BNI accountability partners like my gym partners. If I stop showing up to the gym, they're going to call me and go, hey, Joe, you're not going to the gym anymore. What's happening? If they don't call me and just let me slide, are they a good accountability partner? Probably not, right, Steve?
Not too good.
Yeah. So they decided to start keeping each other accountable and put some things into effect to teach the whole chapter. So kind of picture this screen for me and just kind of remember the colors going down that, because that was last September of 2021. So here's what they instituted. They started doing a weekly email that included the power of one. Hey, everybody, looking forward to the meeting this week. For your convenience, here's July's power of one. And it was there. A lot of you still, I think, Steve, do a lot of people still call it traffic lights?
There are some regions that refer to it as a traffic lights report, yes.
Okay. So everybody knows what I'm talking about. Power of one equals traffic lights. So they also added colors to their roster. So when they handed out the roster every week, everybody had a color next to their name, which forced questions. People just started asking. So they started discussing it weekly. They did a lot of ed moments on it, and they just discussed it all the time. And Steve, I think one of the misconceptions with the power of one is this is some BNI corporate-y thing where you're going to get a slap on the hand for being in the gray. And it's not. It is an accountability tool, but it also, I can look at those numbers and I can reach out to somebody in the gray, and I know they're struggling, and I can go, hey, I see you're in the gray. Is there something I could do to help you? Is there something I could do to support you? You know, are you getting the most out of BNI? Because if you're not, let's start with the power of one, start tracking and reporting your activity. And that's a great starting point. So they discussed it weekly. They started doing teaching moments. So when you show this power of one, you don't go, hey, look at everybody in the gray. Let's talk about the people in the gray. But let's recognize and use recognition moments to say, hey, Steve really rocked it this month. He's our networker of the month. He moved up to 90 in the power of one. And then Steve, will you do an ed moment this month and tell us what you did for your increase in activity? Like, what was it? And then what did you benefit from it? So go ahead, Steve.
I was going to say, it's such a great idea. And by the way, you can recognize someone who went from gray to yellow. That's a huge accomplishment, or even gray to red. I know it's like, you're probably going to get a wild round of applause from going from gray to red. But the fact is, someone is engaging in their activity and doing a little bit better. You can't expect everybody to be green all the time. Things come up, they've got work stuff, they got life stuff happening. So the numbers may fluctuate a little bit. But if you're seeing them put out an effort, and I think, Joe, one of the things that you said was putting it in the email every week. If it's in front of them all the time, they're going to want to do more. And sometimes all it really takes is entering stuff that you didn't normally enter. Amen. Which kind of talks about why all those people were probably in gray in the first place.
Yeah. And Jill asked a great question. How do you get over the negativity that creates with people who are feeling like you are slapping them on the wrist? Yeah, really good point, Jill. And listen, I would just start with talking about it. So, this is a lost art sometimes, which is direct communication, one-on-one communication. At the end of this, I'm going to give you a link to Tim Roberts. I think a perfect 15-minute explanation of the power of one. What he did in 15 minutes, I couldn't do in 2 hours. It's a perfect summation, and it will inspire people in your chapter to learn more about it, understand it, and then start increasing in the power of one and their activity in the chapter. So I just would start with communication, one-on-one. And it's, hey, you're not in trouble. I'm here to support you. How can I help you? We see in BNI I see it throughout Massachusetts and the country, the chapters that have a power of one culture are more successful, more members, more referrals, more money, just more everything. And it just breeds more. Success breeds success. As you have one person and another I mean, it just gets better and better. So yeah, great question. And I would just do that one-on-one, one at a time. All right. And always recognize people on the upside, not people that might have had a tough month at work or personally and slipped into the gray. BNI Newburyport also did put in a 60-day, I call it probation. I wish there was a better word for it, like a 60-day support period, right? Whatever it is that says, hey, Tom, we realize you're not putting, you're in the gray and the power of one. How can we support you? Do you need to know how to do it? We can help with the app. Talk to our IT guy that's in our IT chair in the chapter and talk about the app, how to do it, and also how to be efficient at it. A lot of the things that I do through BNI, I've worked into my daily schedule, right? For CEUs, I do them while I'm mowing the lawn. I'm listening to a podcast, my drive to and from work. There are ways to work on this that it's not more hours into your week, but just helping you be more efficient.
Yeah, so, I spoke to somebody this morning who called me and said, how can I, do all these things that BNI asks when, I've got, a busy day and I've got like a 90-minute commute. And I said, oh, say no more. 90 minutes, guess what you can do? You can get in so many CEUs.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, and that's a great point, Stephen. That's, that also is to my point of marketing always falling down the totem pole, right? And that's what this is. This is your marketing channel. And listen, I've been in marketing my whole life. Network marketing is by far the most successful marketing channel that we have. I mean, I know SEO and pay-per-click, and I could spend these hours instead of networking and CEUs and visiting my chapters. I could spend that time doing SEO. But I see that the return on investment is so much higher here in building relationships, So back to our chapter, look at their new power of one as of this month, August 2022. 327 referrals received, which is 41 higher than the previous period, right? When they were all, in the gray, right? 44 visitors, which is 26 higher. How do visitors go up? I can tell you this. When CEUs go up, visitors go up because people go into BNI Business Builder or podcasts, and they say, they search for visitor podcasts. How do I get more visitors to BNI? There's so much great information for opening up your mind for more visitors. So as CEUs go up, visitors go up. They added 7 new members, Steve. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, started with this culture. They're now at 38 members. And guess what? An extra 50 or 60 grand of revenue for the chapter. And this is what they use as a culture and a foundation, right?
Yeah, and by the way, when you see something like this and you're like, well, 7 new members, but the revenue is only up 55,000. That 55,000 is from the existing members. The new members haven't even started yet.
Amen.
And so you can imagine how much more the revenue will grow.
Yeah, great point. So I see this in the chapters that I support, like BNI Newburyport. I see it in chapters that I visit, and it's why I'm so passionate about it. I see businesses changed. I see lives changed. By the way, they now have 2 nonprofits in BNI Newburyport that they support.
Nice.
2 nonprofits, which now gives them even more of a mission for the chapter. They're just doing a fantastic job. So I wanted to highlight them here. And I'll be honest with you, Steve, I haven't showed the chapter this. I'm not sure if they're aware of it. They're probably aware because they see the power of one that, hey, okay, we got everybody out of the gray. They probably see that, but I'm going to send over to them today what it's done for them money-wise. And that I hope will even encourage them to stay on this same path, right?
Agreed. And one of the things, it does kind of, when you see a little bit of improvement, you tend to see continued improvement. So this is a big jump. Yeah,
it's a huge jump. And listen, was it all because of the power of one? Probably not. There's other factors, right? There are, but this sure is a great barometer on the culture of a chapter and what everyone's doing there. Are they there for a coffee club to meet and eat Danishes, or are you there to do business? For those that, say, I can't do more hours for BNI stuff, well, take advantage of the hours you have now. So that hour and a half meeting, I hope that you feel is your most important meeting of the week. I always treat it as my biggest client meeting of the week. And I hope you do too, because with that expectation, huge things happen. When a visitor walks in the door and you introduce one good person to another good person, magic things happen. It's where I found the love of my life. And by the way, let me say, Steve, do not use the BNI app as a dating app. So that whole process wasn't purposeful. Yeah. But there is nothing greater that you could do for your chapter than to bring a visitor in, because you never know what's going to come of it. Is it their biggest client ever? Is it an introduction to a huge new client? Or is it somebody that meets and does a one-to-one and falls in love? Like, who knows?
You never know.
Yeah. It's the cornerstone and the biggest thing you can do when it comes to Giver's Gain. Steve, do we have any questions that you want to address? I can't keep up with that chat. I'm hoping you are.
Yeah, well, we've got some questions in the Q&A, so why don't we look at those? I don't know if you want to get into Q&A now, or do you have more?
I don't know if there's something you want to address right now, or we can come back to it. I really only have.
No, I think we can. I think for now, I think keep going, and then we'll just jump into Q&A at the end.
Fantastic. All right. So let me go into closing. And there are two things today. Is what is the power of one? Where is the benefit for you? And then where is it for your chapter, right? So for you, I just have to highly suggest, if you haven't gotten to the point yet, find it, watch it, and analyze it. Does anybody abhor Excel sheets?
Apart from me?
Yeah.
So actually, I love an Excel spreadsheet if it's done. I just don't like making them.
Somebody just said Excel is a way of life. Yeah, for some,
fair enough.
I formerly was that way. And when I saw this Power of One report and it's 50 tabs at the bottom and all these functions that I can use, I was like, this is just not for me. And then somebody reminded me, lifelong learning, Joe, it's a core value of BNI. So I spent a little time with it each month. It wasn't immediate. I just started learning, where do I find my chapter? The first tab has scoring on it. So I still don't understand the scoring. Let me look at this again. So I just started one little tab at a time. And when I had 5 minutes or 15 minutes, I learned this much. And then if anybody's read Atomic Habits,
that's a great book.
Yeah, it is. The aggregates of small advancements and small wins. So I had 5-minute wins, right? I spent 5 minutes with that spreadsheet. I learned a little something and I closed it. And then another time I learned something with 5 minutes and I closed it. Now I know it backward and forward. I'm quick at it. I'm good at it. I still don't like it, but I love the information it provides. So find it, watch it, learn about it, and analyze it. Maybe find yourself an accountability partner. That could be somebody right in your chapter that maybe you could challenge, or you just take them aside and go, hey, I'm learning more about this Power of One and how I can better use my marketing channel by using it. What do you think? You want to meet? Let's have a one-to-one and talk more about it and how we can help support each other advance in the Power of One. It doesn't need to be your chapter either. It could be your success coach, director, somebody from another chapter, somebody in your same profession across the state that's at 100 at Power of One. It could be a new, if you were a financial advisor and you want to meet an accountant, it could be an accountant in another chapter, whatever it is. A good idea is to find yourself an accountability partner. Now, for your chapter, I say this for your chapter, but this only benefits you too. As your chapter grows, I find in smaller chapters, Steve, they always have a problem referring. And I get that. You only have 13 referral partners. So exactly. How many, the opportunities aren't there. But as your chapter grows, your outbound referrals will grow big time too, right? If you get a dog groomer, a dog walker, and a kennel in your chapter, and now you have a pet sphere, how easy are they referred to? I can refer to them day after day. I went to a chapter in Lakeland, Colorado. There was 93 members. Steve, have you ever been to a chapter of 90 plus members?
Yeah, I know the chapter you're talking about. It is a huge chapter that always hovers right around 100 members. It is an amazing experience to see.
What an experience. They have an auto sphere there. So they have foreign auto sales, domestic auto sales, body shop, mechanic shop, detailer. And I'm like, what? You have a whole sphere of auto people, and they all refer the crap out of each other. It's awesome. So for your chapter, this is only for your chapter, but you too, start sharing the power of one, discussing it, keeping an eye on it every month. By the way, BNI is awesome at this. It comes out within the first 5 days of the month. So by the 5th of the month, it's out every month in BNI Business Builder. So reach out to support others in your chapter. So maybe you have a partner, a networking partner that's in the gray and doesn't know this stuff, that you can go, hey, do you know about the power of one? Is there something I can help you with? So you can get more out of our chapter. And adopt that culture overall. I'm going to leave this QR code up here. I'll tell you where it's going to go, but don't go there yet, because then I'll lose your attention to Tim Roberts. And he's much better than I am, to be honest with you. He's an amazing speaker. He's got a great podcast called Power of One Podcast. But that QR code goes over to, remind me to come back to Tristan's thing there. I'm not on leadership. I want to talk about that, Tristan. Hang tight. So that QR code goes over to the best explanation of the power of one I've ever seen from the person who created it. Isn't that right, Steve? Didn't he create the power of one?
He had certainly a hand in it. There was something that was really important to him. I think it kind of came out in a version, and he kind of said, well, here's what we really should do. And really, put in a lot of the emphasis on how it's such an important tool for members to improve themselves and report things that are going to help other members as well.
All right. Kim, I'll drop that link right there. I'll drop that in chat before we exit today. So that's it in a nutshell. Steve, you asked me for less than 40 minutes. We're at 35, which will leave plenty of time for Q&A.
Yep.
Tristan asked, she said, I'm not on leadership, right? So not to be a smart aleck, but get on leadership. Had you thought about, and it could be, something simple that I say simple, but every aspect of leadership is of such huge importance. With our leadership team transition coming up, it's imperative that everybody on leadership do their role, because the president doesn't necessarily know every aspect of every leadership team position. So if the mentor coordinator is not doing their job, the president might not know exactly what that job is. So as everybody just handles their simple duties, you'll be in a much better place. But ask to be on leadership, Tristan, would be my first answer. Second, lead by example. So you don't have to be in leadership. And maybe this is something where you're the first person in your chapter that hits 100% on the power of one. And when you do, by the way, people are going to ask. And you go, okay, well, what did you do there? How did you do that? So lead by example there, even if you're not on your leadership. I hope that helps, Tristan. That was just one idea I had. Steve, anything you can add to that?
No, I mean, I think that, everyone taking a turn on leadership is always a great thing. It always concerns me when the same people are on leadership year after year after year, because things tend to go a little bit stale that way. It's always great to bring in new, excited people with maybe a different perspective on how the culture can change and be better.
Hey, and Steve, you know what somebody just did that I absolutely loved? So Tristan, you don't have to be president, vice president, secretary of treasury, membership committee. Is there a need in your chapter that maybe isn't an official position? I'll give you one. Is somebody said, hey, we had a member whose father passed, and we haven't sent them flowers as a chapter. And of course, everybody scrambled. Oh my goodness, how do we miss that? As the chapter, we sent flowers, right? So it got done, but it was weeks late. somebody said, well, is that something that I could just take care of whenever we need it to? So we assigned that person the Sunshine Fund. So whenever something, that deserves or needs flowers sent or just recognition, that person does it, sends it out, and then the chapter reimburses them. And of course, she informs the leadership team, here's what I did. Is there another need in your chapter? Maybe it's the person that brings all the IT cords that everybody's always scrambling for every week. And reach out to your leadership and fill in a hole, Hey, I realize we never have this IT situation together. I'll be the IT person and make sure that this equipment is here in the meeting every week. All right. So yeah, if your leadership team is full, I guarantee you something's missing that you can slip into, either offer or reach out and just say, hey, I'd love to support the leadership team. Do you have anything that I can do? All right.
I love that you called it the Sunshine Fund, because that is a phrase that comes from the late, great Bill Purdon, who would be overjoyed to know that his phraseology is still working its way around Massachusetts.
That's awesome, Steve. I didn't even know where that came from. So that is awesome. And Becky, yeah, what really good point. No chapter leadership team is going to turn down an offer to help. I mean, it's what we're here for. It's giver's gain. Really good point. What else? Okay, you want to start going over some questions?
Yeah, let's jump into Q&A.
Awesome.
Let's see. So let's see, what do we have here? What counts as a visitor? Non-BNI people only?
Yes. Here's my understanding. If the seat or profession is not taken in your chapter and they are not a BNI member, that is a visitor. But listen, we love visitors of all sorts. Steve, I had my mom to BNI now twice. Now, did she count as a legitimate visitor? No. But guess what? My mom now has our chapter roster on her desk at home. And when she and the people from the Council on Aging or her bingo group or her pinochle group or her Friday night ladies, when they need an electrician or anything, contract or whatever, my mom has the list and she calls me. Joe, I'm going to call Steve Clinton over here. Is that okay? Yes, Mom, that's great. You wonder why I have a lot of referrals. Some come from my mom. But yeah, getting back to it, no visitor is bad. You never know what's going to happen. Of course, we're not going to purposely reach out to people where the profession is already full in our chapter. But occasionally you'll have another BNI person from another chapter that wants to visit. That's okay. If that profession is taken, your visitor host team should let them know that they're simply an observer. So there you have it. Was that an explanation? I went off into talking about my mom, which I can tend to do sometimes, Steve.
I think it all worked together. That was fine. But I think for anyone asking about that, I mean, I kind of break them out into either you're a visitor, you're a substitute, or you're, kind of a guest, I guess, right? And those are all fine to bring in, but I would not count those people who don't have the ability to apply for membership as a visitor. I would kind of classify them in those other ways. And again, as you mentioned, can bring a lot of business into the chapter. One thing I did, by the way, when I was the visitor host in my chapter, of course, we followed up with all of our visitors after the visitor orientation, but I used to follow up with the substitutes as well and say, hey, it was great to have you at the meeting. Do you have any interest in becoming part of the chapter? And honestly, the majority of them said no, because they were just there to sub. But I would ask them about giving them the roster as well. And we started tracking some of the revenue that came in. And that particular year, we brought in about $60,000 in revenue from substitutes who only came one time.
No kidding. That is awesome.
It's definitely worth that extra effort.
Definitely. And somebody said, yes, it's the first visit, by the way. So if they come 1 week, that's a visitor. If they come the next week or 3 weeks later, yeah, it's not a new visitor, but it's just a repeat visitor. You get the credit on your Power of One for that one time. I did find out that recently, Steve, and I haven't had the time to research this. I invited someone that visited my chapter like a year and a half ago and haven't been back since. And here we are a year and a half later, they came a second time. And I think she qualified as a legitimate visitor. It's all based on the email address. So if that person came, and they come twice, yeah, you get one. But I think after a certain amount of time, keep inviting these people back. Dennis Charles, our buddy Dennis Charles, was invited to BNI. He says 15 times before he finally went. And hey, Glad Perez, thanks for the answer. Yeah, if they visit 6 months later, and Chris, thanks. 6 months. I'm glad I learned something brand new today. That's awesome. What else got for questions, Steve?
All right. Where can I find the scoring system?
I don't want to go back to that slide, or would you like me to go back to that slide, Steve?
You can go back to the slide if you like.
Cool. I'll show you because I skipped through that really quickly. I was nervous I was going to run out of time. So let me find it. Boop, boop. On the Power of One, when you download it, if you look down at the bottom here, bottom left, that first tab says scoring. And it's going to show how the BNI Power of One is scored. Right? Simple and direct answer. That first.
Yes, this is all important. The question though was, where do they access this?
Oh, what BNI Business Builder. And if you need that, if you don't have access to that, go to your corporate website. For me, it's bnimass.com. And on the tab that says Member and LT Resources, that page has the best links and answers the most questions of any page in BNI. And on there, you'll see a link to BNI Business Builder. For those of you that go to bnicoreregions.com, if you're in the core region, that's another place that has it, but your regional website will have it on the resources page.
Yep.
All right, so BNI Business Builder, search for the month, year, and Power of One. All right.
Great. All right, great answer. All right, let's see. Does BNI plan on integrating the Power of One report into the app to make it more accessible? Shall I answer that one?
I can guess what the answer is, but if you have a definitive answer, go ahead.
Not yet. I would say it's something that they're looking at, but what they're working on more than that, that I've heard, is trying to get BNI Business Builder to communicate with BNI Connect, so that at some point your CEUs will transfer automatically in without you entering them. That's the kind of the big thing that we're focusing on right now. But as they've already added a ton of different features on that app, and they continue to. So it's a great suggestion.
Awesome. And to answer somebody's question quickly, the Massachusetts site is BNIMass, MASS.com, BNIMass.com.
Yeah, any regional website within the core region should have that leadership team page. But yeah, anywhere you go, you'll get there eventually. Marietta asks, can only leadership access the Power of One?
It is public information, public to BNI members. Everyone has access to it. And on that Power of One, for me, the Power of One Massachusetts, every chapter in the state is listed there. And I got to tell you, it's also a very good resource for me. If I need a vendor in, say, graphic design, I can search in BNI and I can search my app for that. But after I find a couple of people, I go to that Power of One. And if I see a graphic designer up in the green and hey, they've been in BNI for 2 years, they're rocking it, they're a good networker, I like to add them to my network. So it's a great resource for that too.
Nick is asking if you would be willing to share these slides with everybody.
I would love to. Would you want to do that, Steve, or do I?
Yeah, I can email it out to everybody who attended today. All right, Judith Jameson, where'd she come from? I know where. She's asking, I recently suggested to my chapter that they show the Power of One with everyone's name, and he was horrified, said it's too embarrassing for everyone. She disagrees. What do you think, Joe?
Is there one person that you can highlight and maybe you just point at that one person. So that's what we do in my home chapter, not to shame anyone that's in the gray, but we just point out the one leader and go, look at this person. They went up 20 points last month in a power of one recognition moment for this for this week. But listen, anybody can get to it. It's there, it's public. So I don't hesitate to show it in our chapter. I get it though. I get the fear, but use it as a recognition tool first and foremost.
Joe, you talked about talking about using education moments and things. And Kay's asking, would it be the mentor coordinator who kind of handles that?
The education coordinator first and foremost. And as any of you that are current education coordinators or becoming one, you can also lean on other members in the chapter. So as education coordinator, if you see someone that's great at inviting visitors, ask them to do education moments. If you know somebody in your chapter that's great at the power of one, has a full understanding of it, and maybe that is your mentor coordinator or someone else, say, hey, you know this really well. Can you do the ed moment next week or the following week? Can we get you scheduled for that? So anybody that has the knowledge and can speak well in front of your chapter, anybody can help the education coordinator. It's a good team. Good team effort.
Right. Yep. Alan's asking, is the Power of One only emailed monthly to core members? I know all of my members receive it.
I didn't know that. I only get it manually by going to find it.
Yeah. And I don't think everyone gets it to them. Yeah. I think it might be coming from within your region.
Yeah. My chapter presidents mail it out. For the most part, the presidents in the chapters that I support will email that out minimum once a month, some every week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I was going to say that it does depend on where your region is. But one thing that I wanted to say, Joe, is that there is like a giant version of this that goes out every month as well for the whole U.S. And so I think if you can't find your own, just search for Power of One USA for whatever month and year, and you should find that report. And then you can just kind of whittle down to where you need to go.
Yeah. Steve, I also want to, some people don't realize why their numbers aren't going up. Have you ever heard that? I did all these CEUs and my numbers didn't change. Yeah. One thing to remember is this is a rolling 6-month period. So just because you did 2 CEUs in the 3rd week of August, that report, first of all, doesn't change until the following month. Okay. So they call it the August report. It's the 6 months through the end of July, but it is the report that we use in the month of August, right? Mm-hmm. So that rolling 6 months for a member that has zeros across the board for CEUs, it's going to take a little while each month as that number will start to climb. It's not going to go from 0 to 100 because they did a ton of activity 1 month. It's a 6-month average. And yeah, I got to lean again on atomic habits and the aggregate of small gains. Yeah. It'll seem like no time at all if you get in a habit of, hey, every Friday I'm doing this, or every day on my way to work I'm doing CEUs. But as you just start adding in these little habits, it'll change, and it'll change for you, your chapter, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. David says, on the scoring, it mentions that lates or subs result in 0.5 attendance loss. I have heard that subs don't result in loss of attendance at all. So which is right?
So it does. You get half credit for a sub. Mm-hmm. A couple of things about subs. Number one, create yourself a substitute list. Have your subs ready in advance. I love letting my potential subs know how important BNI is to me. And I let them know, listen, every once in a while, I might miss a meeting. If I see it upcoming or I have a vacation, can I just call on you and see if you would substitute for me that week? I don't want to miss a meeting. Mm-hmm. Number one, they see how important it is. They're like, that raises a red flag for them. Why is this so important? Why is this such a big deal to you? and they look further into BNI. Number two, when they do visit, it's a great opportunity for everybody else, right? My sub list are not non-BNI members, right? I've got a really cool little sub list that I use, and I don't need them that often, but non-BNI members, because they can add to your network. But you only get half credit because, listen, your chapter is there to know you personally, not your coworker. The relationship that they're building is with you. Again, not coworker, not neighbor, not your mom. It is with you. So if you sent a sub every week, you know, that's not an opportunity to get to know you more. So yeah, extrapolate on that for me. Would you, Steve? Does that make sense?
It does make sense to me. We are up against the clock here, so I'm going to move on to another question. Some members feel that they can't invite somebody in a profession that we already have, mainly because they won't get visitor credit, even though the person could possibly join BNI as a whole in another chapter. This has reduced the number of visitors if no credit is received. Is it wrong that as VP, I've been accepting them as first-time visitors and giving their members their Power of One visitor credit?
So if the profession is taken, yeah. So I'm a vice president of my home chapter. And if a financial advisor comes, and we have a financial advisor in the chapter, they're contacted before the meeting by a visitor host to say, hey, you're very welcome to visit our BNI chapter. I do want to let you know that we only have one person per profession. So your visit is going to be as an observer. I would love you to come and visit and meet some folks, and that's great. And also, my chapter success coach's name is Becky Sushu. She might be able to help you find another chapter where your profession is available. Would that be great? So they are not legitimate visitors. And yeah, I wouldn't spend any time pursuing people where I already have network partners in my chapter to join my chapter or to visit my chapter. I would let everybody know how great BNI has been for my business, and they should look for a chapter in general. But no, they're not going to get credit. They shouldn't get credit for a profession that's already taken in your chapter.
Right, exactly. And I think that eventually they're going to wind up going to the chapter that they're fit for and, go in as a visitor over there.
Yeah.
But certainly, I think that what's important here is to really look at who's missing from your chapter and invite those people, rather than people who are already represented.
Amen. And Steve, I keep saying credit. I don't like that word credit. Are you getting credit for a visitor?
Mm-hmm.
I don't do things in my chapter to check off a box and get credit for it. And I know that most of us here don't either, right? I bring those visitors and I do CEUs because I want to grow personally. I want to grow professionally. I want to grow my network, and I want to do something for my chapter. So I bring people. I don't really care if I get credit for it, right? We use that word so we all know what each other means, but yeah.
Absolutely. All right. I am going to wrap it up here. I know there are some other questions in the chat. If anyone has any pressing needs, please email myself or Joe. Joe, go to your contact info if you could. Is your email on there, Joe, or no?
I had it. Okay,
just put it right in the chat.
Awesome. It's top there. Joseph Poirier at BNI.com.
Great.
Yep. Yeah, I would love to hear from anyone, and anybody that needs a one-to-one, I'm available. Might be a couple weeks out. But we'll get it done.
Excellent. So speaking of that, Joe, go to the last slide if you could. And just to let you know that we are not meeting next week. No webinar. I'm on vacation. And so are a lot of you for the long weekend. But after Labor Day, we're back on September 9th with Mike Savage, another Massachusetts guy. I love it, two in a row, talking about your 2023 business plan. So we're going to work on a business plan, workshop style, in the course of 1 hour. So please register for that one, and we'll see you then. Give yourselves a CEU. And Joe, thanks so much for being on this time. That was great.
Thanks, Steve. I really appreciate it.
All right, everybody, take care, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.